Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Rick Zanotti, and welcome to eLearnChat, where Doc is knowledge. And right next to me is the lovely, and in her home in nice warm weather in Wisconsin, Dawn
Yes.
Mahoney.
I think it's a whole 37 degrees right now.
37? That's actually kind of almost heat-like for you guys.
No, it's just November. But it's a pretty day. I'm going to take a walk, hopefully, after a while.
That sounds good.
Glad to be home and glad to be here. And I shouldn't have any technology issues today. So
That sounds good. Well, Dawn spends a lot of time on the road training people and doing good work. You actually work at a pretty cool organization that does good for people, especially seniors.
yeah, senior housing, Brookdale Senior Living. And this year has been a lot of spending time on the road, reframing our onboarding program and trying to get our associates in alignment with how safe associates make sense.
That is a good thing.
Train the trainer is my world.
And Dawn, today we've got a guest that may scare a lot of people.
It's not Captain Captivate, I know that.
When you bring up the word SCORM and LMSs, you see people turn white. I mean, just start sweating.
Do you have a sound
It's really
effect
interesting.
for this?
Well, our guest, Brian Caudill, is a SCORM expert, and his company provides services on SCORM, and they provide really good products to make SCORM accessible. And there's nothing to really be afraid of, right? Hey, Brian, how are you?
I'm doing good. And yourself?
I am doing really well.
Fantastic.
Well, Brian, you've got a company that's pretty much focused on a lot of the aspects of SCORM and what to do with SCORM, how to implement it, how to create SCORM manifests and everything else. Want to tell us a little bit about your company?
Sure. The company's name is JCA Solutions. I'm the founder. At this point, we've got about, let's say, about 5 employees, and then 5 consultants that we work with. We need to tap for special projects. We started out about 11 years ago, actually in 2001, and at that point, we had one product offering, and that was the SCORM course. And at that point, it was called Dr. Ed's SCORM course because he was one of the founders as well, although he's not with us anymore. He's moved on to bigger and better things. But so we started out with that, and that was kind of our foray into, okay, well, you guys know what you're doing. Now, people start asking us, well, can you just do it? You know, not just give us the course and train us, but actually just do it for us or create products that can help us do it. And so that is, kind of how we evolved as a company. And then our most latest kind of evolution is that we brought on a partner. His name is George Vilches, and we brought his company into the fold. His company was called Fortune Cookie Studios, and it's a hosting company, just generalized hosting company. We do a lot of hosting for large Fortune 500 companies. And so we brought that in to have the hosting aspect as well. So we can do kind of soup to nuts, development to deployment, consulting, as well as actually, implement things that you may need to implement in the training realm or just generally in web development. That's kind of Georgia's side of the table. So my side is e-learning, learning management systems, SCORM, Tin Can, Common Cartridge, LTI, QTI, all of those IMS Global specifications and the ADL specifications. That's my forte. It's what I've been doing for about 13 years now. And then we've got George on the other side. He's got a couple guys underneath him, and they do basic web development all the way up to data crunching for stock market exchange type of folks that are trying to get ahead on the market. So we've got kind of 2 parts to our company, but what we'll focus on today is the e-learning side.
That sounds good. Now, you mentioned one thing I wasn't familiar with, Common Cartridge. What's that?
Oh, well, so that was the book manufacturer's foray into exchanging data online, similar to SCORM.
Oh, okay.
So Common Cartridge is kind of, to back up just a little bit, LTI is the kind of standard behind Common Cartridge. And so the basis, like I said, for Common Cartridge was for book manufacturers, especially for books for schools, higher education, universities, that sort of thing, to be able to exchange information about secondary offerings in multimedia format as opposed to just in paper format. And so that was kind of their take on SCORM and AICC, and so they created their own standard called Common Cartridge.
That's interesting. And one thing, I was looking at your website last night, and one thing that I really enjoyed was, as part of your services, you offer SCORM psychiatrists, which led me to which brings up the question: do you do tracking therapy?
Well, my background is in psychology.
Ah, perfect. So we are doing track therapy.
Yes, and so it's kind of funny. It was kind of a joke with the marketing team that we have. They said, "Well, where do you guys come from? What are your backgrounds? What do you do?" And that sort of thing. As we started our marketing and the website, and they said, "Oh, your background's in psychology. Well, you should talk about." SCORM therapy or something to that effect. And it was kind of a joke, but really a lot of clients come to us not so much that they're having anxiety about SCORM or some definable psychological issue with it, so to speak, but we do act as mediators between the learning management system vendors and the content vendors to kind of smooth over the debates about pointing fingers, whose problem is it and who needs to fix it, and who's on contract to pay for this and who's on contract to pay for that. So not so much, more of like what is it, the
kind of universal translator, like a universal translator for the companies.
There you go. We kind of sit in the middle and say, well, part of this is your problem, part of this is their problem, and we're true consultants in that way. If you bring us in, we are dedicated to finding the best solution for you, and it may not be anything that we offer, or it may be something that we offer. I don't know. As people ask for more things, whether it be consulting services or products, we try to build up our line so that we can obviously offer as much as we can in-house. That's one of the reasons for bringing George in. He has a great background in software development and software, deployments and things of that nature. But we quite frequently send our customers to other places because they need either a larger production facility that we just don't have. Or they need products that we currently don't have or don't support, and that's perfectly fine with us. We want to be the guys that you ask the questions, and then if we can help you, we'd be glad to help you.
Well, that's good. That's music to my ears, because it's so hard to find consulting companies that actually do what they're supposed to do.
I just actually had a client that came to me, and they're like, you're the first guys that we could find, and of course, if they looked, I'm sure they could find other people, but the first guys that you could find that actually did, support for Moodle SCORM issues, and then force us to host with you.
Oh, interesting. That's true.
Well, I was like, I don't want to take your hosting. I don't want that problem. I want to fix your problem and go into another one. Your problem is Moodle hosting. I'm sorry.
You're in a room with many couches, and one couch has the instructional designer on it, and one couch has the business owner and the stakeholder on it, and people from your office kind of mediating that conversation.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where we like to put ourselves, and then we like to bring the products and the solutions in to say, well, some of this stuff we have canned already. We can just hand over to you, and it'll solve your problem. Other things are, we just got to talk it through, and it may be something that we've never done before, but we have the background to solve the issue.
Now, one thing for all of those of you who have not or get anxiety when you think of SCORM, but you need to SCORM your pieces. If you're doing e-learning, there's a good chance you're probably either going to be on AICC or SCORM, most likely SCORM in today's day and age.
Yeah.
Brian has two good products that
Yes.
that do a really good job, and we use these we use one of the products right now, and it's great. And that's Simple SCORM Packager, which
Right.
allows you to do just about everything you need to do with SCORM to make sure that your course launches, it aggregates, it does everything it's supposed to, and it does it very easily. And the other one is Trident, I believe, right?
Yes, and that does it very not so easily.
Not so easily, but it gives you a lot of power. You have total control
Right.
over it.
Exactly. And so there are two, I wouldn't say polar opposites, but one's the low power, high value. The other one's high power, but you need to also know about SCORM and know what you're doing. So SCORM developers usually go for the Trident product, which allows you to, it's an integrated desktop environment built off of Eclipse, if that makes any sense to the folks out
Yeah,
there.
and Eclipse is a programming editor.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's a programming editor. Very good.
It's actually probably the
And-
best one out there.
Right, for open source. And so we have plugins that make the IDE basically a SCORM editor. And so that's for things like doing very advanced sequencing and navigation for SCORM 2004, 3rd edition, 4th edition, that sort of thing. Most people don't need to get that far into the weeds about it unless you're doing DoD contract, Department of Defense contracts where they require some of that sequencing. So we sell Trident a lot to defense contractors, subcontractors, and direct to mostly the Navy and the Army. Now, Simple SCORM Packager is, as its name implies, simple. It's a wizard interface. You have about 5 screens until you get to the end. So you have about 10 or so different choices as to what data you can input into this product. It'll ask you, what type of SCORM version you want to build your product to. Give it a title, give it a description, point to the file you would like to launch on your LMS, and then press finish, and you've got your zip package basically. And so that's where we started with Simple SCORM Packager 1.0 and 2.0. They pretty much do the same thing. There's been some bug fixes, obviously, and additions to SCORM versions as SCORM has grown. So we support SCORM 1.2, 2004, 2nd edition, 3rd edition, and 4th edition. And so the next kind of iteration of this was supposed to come out in the summer with 3.0. But as people started giving us more input on the beta, we thought, well, we should probably delay it and make it more of a plug-in architecture for Simple SCORM Packager, because people are starting to ask, well, do you support DIN-CAN? Do you support Common Cartridge? Do you support these other things? But we want to keep the price fair for the base product. So with the 3.0 version, what we're looking to do is apply the ability to easily add sequencing in basic sequencing. Like, I want a pretest, and if they pass the pretest, they don't have to take the content. And if they can maybe put a post-test in there, and you can sequence those different SCOs that are in your package. And the second thing is just basic lockstepping, where you have to take the first item and then the second item and the third item, and you have to take them in that order, and you don't have any choice. So that's something that we're going to add in definitely, and that's in beta right now with some folks. In fact, you guys are slated to get the beta as well, so probably should get that over to you.
That sounds great. Now, it's interesting because one of the issues that a lot of people have is there's a lot of capabilities in SCORM 1.2 and really a lot more in 2004, but very few LMSs really truly take advantage of it. And so you have this, everybody's SCORM quote unquote compliant. I don't think there are all that many certified.
Right.
And
Self-certified.
they're self-certified. Yeah. Which is like taking a self-driving test, kind of. It's like, I did okay. I passed. Hey, I'm done.
Right. Nobody complained about me.
Yeah, so it must be
I
good.
did fine. Right.
Yeah. And
So I have a few questions out in the chat room if you're ready for them.
Sure, go ahead.
I'll take the shorter one first, which is Leva's asking, I heard that 2004 will be the last version of SCORM and that tin-can is the next thing. So I guess that was some of the conversation at DevLearn 2 weeks ago. Maybe you can address that, or from your perspective.
Sure. From my understanding, SCORM is supposed to be rolled up underneath something called the TLA, the Training and Learning Architecture from ADL. And so SCORM is going to be one part of that. TinCan is going to be another part of it. And then the CMI-5 from AICC, which is, from what I've heard in just the last couple of days, is going to be adopting either TinCan or a TinCan-like solution. So all of that is going to be rolled under what is being termed the Training and Learning Architecture, and TinCan will then become the Experience API. And so I saw kind of like a Venn diagram where some of the items overlapped and some of them had capabilities that others don't have. Like, for instance, TinCan. You can use TinCan almost exactly like SCORM. You can send success status, completion status, lesson not lesson status, but lesson location for bookmarking, all those same things, same type of variables, name value pairs, if you will, with TinCan. But then you have a lot more power with TinCan as well. You can do things that are totally out of the box, track YouTube videos and all kinds of other things that aren't even on the LMS, that are talking directly to the learning record store. So, and I know Mike Russell talked about that last week, so I won't go into too much detail about that. You can watch the video from last week. But go ahead.
On YouTube, I said.
Yes, on YouTube. Yes, on YouTube, of course. So that's my take on it. I think ADL is trying to move everything pretty much under their training and learning architecture, and then there's going to be probably continued support for SCORM 1.2. Pretty much everybody uses that, and I don't see in my just in my clients and in my own way of thinking, I don't see a great need to get rid of it. I see a great need to subsidize it, to make additions to it with TinCan, but a lot of people have a lot of courses which would become legacy courses if TinCan was to take over everything.
Right.
I don't think that's really the point. I think the point is that TinCan does things that SCORM doesn't do, and SCORM does things well that it does now. Now, as to your, directly to your question, will there be more SCORM versions? I don't think so. I think SCORM 2004 is pretty much where it's going to stop. There may be obviously fixes, bug fixes, things like that, update documentation and that sort of thing. But I don't think that there's anywhere else to go with it, really, because the technology is overcoming the standard.
Yeah. Now I have a joke. I mean, we're in 2012 and we're on SCORM 2004. So I was thinking, just to keep up, they should do SCORM 2006. You don't want to get too far ahead of the curve there. So
yeah.
Well, and the WC3 compliance and all that has really kind of dictated, hasn't it? The standards and expectations that are there for SCORM, or am I showing my ignorance completely when I say that?
Yeah, of course, because W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium, they're the folks that are pressing the envelope and writing the standards for the web in general. And so, if we're talking about web-based training, we should kind of keep up with those standards. And so, the web services architecture and the REST API that goes along with TinCan is an attempt to do that. Even so, the REST API has been around for quite some time, and web services have been around for a long time. I mean, Facebook and LinkedIn and all these, where you can link your profile from here and see your data over there and share this with that, and you've been doing that for years, and TinCan is something that's just taking advantage of what the opportunities that already exist out there. So to say that W3C is a driver, I don't know of the e-learning standards. I don't know if we stay that close. E-learning tends to stay a little bit behind, a little bashful, a little shy, and not get into the cutting edge of things, so to speak, in the technology. Where we stay on the cutting edge in e-learning is with learning philosophy and pedagogy and that sort of thing that fits the way that people learn. So that I think that's what we're more concerned about, and technology that will make that easier for us or make that better for the students is what we're interested in, not necessarily the latest and greatest technology that makes the web cool.
So that kind of all feeds into the next question. Mary Vivid was typing, there's quite a bit, but the end of the question, I think the first part was addressed earlier. So the end of the question is, are there resources that we can use to help e-learning developers understand the options, meaning Tin Can, SCORM, even AICC, and how to use them appropriately? So I guess we're looking for a map now since there's multiple options.
Sure.
Designers and developers.
Yeah, right now, since we're in the early stages of kind of combining these things, or I say we as a group, our organization isn't the one combining these things, but since the training market is in the early stages, I don't think that anybody's actually put all in one place. Hey, here's all different standards, and here's pros and cons, and here's when you would use one, and here's when you would use the other. There's websites that you can go to that describe different parts of these standards, or describe the standards to the extent that you would have an understanding enough to then make that decision on your own. We have, tincanapi.com, which is where you can get information about the Tin Can API. And that's made possible by Mike Rusticy's company. At the JCA Solutions website, we've got a developers link where you can link over to the IMS Global, where they have the standards like the LTI and the Common Cartridge, which were standards that came out of IMS Global. You've got the AICC website for all of the CMI 5 and CMI 4 standards from there. So at this point, I don't think anybody's put together a website or really any documentation of, you use this one over that one or what have you. I think it really boils down, and I don't want to sound like a cop-out, because I'd like to tell you exactly what each one did, and that they were useful in their own right, but really it boils down to, what is your LMS support?
Right.
What is your LMS support, and what tools do you have available that will marry your content with your LMS? So if you're using Captivate and your LMS supports SCORM, then probably the best way to go is just export your Captivate as SCORM 1.2. It's the lowest common denominator. It's probably going to work just fine.
The question out in the chat room is, when are LMS going to support higher levels besides that, higher levels of SCORM or later versions of SCORM?
A lot of learning management systems do support SCORM 2004 to some extent. We've got the open source learning management systems like Ilias. Their website is ilias.de, and so we've got that open source LMS that supports SCORM 2004 very well. In fact, it supports all the way up to 4th edition, and we use that for some of our clients. You've got paid for learning management systems like Saba and Docebo and that sort of thing. I just throw those two out because they're in a totally different price range. Saba is quite expensive. Docebo is maybe $15,000 or something like that. And then actually JCA Solutions is also working on a product which is going to be just an LRS, a learning resource store, and we're calling it the Hive at this point, where all your information can go into via Tin Can, via SCORM through our simple SCORM LMS adapter, and then you can use your own reporting tools or your LMS's reporting tools to grab data from there. So each student would have their own record store from anywhere they did their learning, whether it was in an LMS or outside of an LMS, and so we would market that both to small organizations that build content to be able to have kind of like a mini LMS, and then we would also market that to learning management systems that hadn't upgraded to have an LRS in their system as well. And all of our products are always, it goes on your system. It's an open license. You pay a single fee. We don't follow the same licensing structure as other organizations where they have a cloud type of environment or a per license fee or something like that, or a per user fee, sorry.
Per user it's a flat rate, then there's a
Right.
migration fee, and then per user.
Right, so we don't do that. We basically have an open license where, once you pay like for instance, simple SCORM LMS adapter, it will bring your learning management system up to SCORM 1.2 and SCORM 2004 API compliance, and that's $5,000 you pay once, and then that's the end of that. You own the license and you own the code, and you can do whatever you like with it except compete with us.
Yes, I like
Yeah, that's actually pretty
very good
reasonable.
value.
Yep, very good value.
Yeah, and again, that stems from our consulting, because as people implement more of our products, then it comes back around. Hey, we have this course. We don't really do SCORM. Can you guys help with getting our clients' courses up to SCORM compliance? Sure, we can. And there we go.
One of the things we spend a lot of time doing is telling people, look, if you're going to buy an LMS that costs hundreds of thousands, ask yourself why. Because more often than not, people don't do anything other than incomplete, complete, pass, fail, we're done. They don't even run reports for the most part.
Right.
And the other thing is, most LMS vendors will tell you that they support everything and anything when they fill out their forms. Mm-hmm. And as a result, the minute it gets implemented, it doesn't support half of what they claim they would. And unhappy customer, unhappy LMS vendor. You come in, make a lot of money fixing the whole situation. That's the way it should be. But but it is sort of a almost pathetic situation with a lot of the LMS vendors that I think the products are just extremely overpriced for what you get. And I come from an IT background. We used to implement a high-end software that didn't cost what an LMS costs to run a whole company. And these are mid-range to high Fortune 500 companies. Right. And I just shake my head and go, what are they thinking? It's just kind of an insanity.
Some of the cost in the enterprise level learning management system comes from the fact that they have to be compliant with like FDA standards and, mm-hmm. and Audible and trackable code and that sort of thing. So, they do have overhead that they have to, maintain, and licenses that they have to maintain. But
so do all the ERP vendors.
That is true too.
Which have to meet a lot of compliance, regulatory standards, everything else, and they cost a fraction of the cost. Right. I mean, you can get a good ERP system $50,000 or less. So I just think it's a market it's a niche market, but I think they've taken niche to kind of an extreme. And I just keep saying, do you get the value for it?
Right. Yeah.
I personally don't think you do.
No, I was just going to say that's why we, that's why we saw a need and a space for, inexpensive product that that meets the pass fail. Bookmarking and basically that's it. You could pull a report and see if someone got a certificate or not.
Yep.
And you can do that pretty easily. And so we have that already available for people to use today. And we've got a couple of people that have partnered with us to use that learning system. But I think what's going to be really the big challenge for us is the LRS that we're moving to, but we do have a mini LMS that I wouldn't say a lot, maybe 10% of our customers use, and it's just kind of a tie-in for people that want to do like SOPs, standard operating procedure mm-hmm. documentation, or what's the other one? Can't remember the other one, but just they have training that they need to put online, and they don't have anywhere to put it. And so, for a small fee, small monthly fee, or a one-time license fee, they can have a small LMS, and we're talking about between $200 and $300 a month, or maybe $5,000 or $6,000 for the whole thing.
Yeah, that's
so on the low end. On the high end, if they need a little bit more in the way of reporting and stuff, you may be up in the $10,000 range. But it's nothing that's going to break the bank. It's it's a drop in the bucket.
One of the things I find interesting, again, coming from an IT background, specifically working in database management, is how badly designed a lot of the LMSs are. And it's not bash LMS time, but it sort of is. And if you're going to charge that much, you better get good database administrators. They don't know how to index. The stuff is not fast usually. I've seen so many LMSs just collapse under load. And usually that's just a sign of bad database programming, bad database management, or bad, I should say, handling of the internet resources. Because that's also another issue, especially in a hosted environment.
Right.
But I mean, I know a couple of people at some pretty good companies, and they'll call up and say, I've got somebody who's got Captivate content, and the content is 300 megabytes. It's like, one course, and they go, it runs slowly. You think?
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, tell you what, why don't you break it into about 10 pieces? Maybe you'll get a little bit better performance.
Right. I got a word for you, SCOs.
Yes, SCOs. Yes, SCOs.
Yeah. Or AUs if you're talking
That's
about
right.
AICC. But
hey, Brian, here's a question.
Reason for that.
Here's a question for you that we get a lot, and I know this is out there in the industry. Why should people go with SCORM versus AICC?
Good question. Very good question. There's some practical reasons that I could talk about, and then there's some kind of conceptual reasons. But the practical reasons are AICC and SCORM 1.2, in fact, even the newer AICC, tracks with SCORM pretty well in the sense that they're going to get you the same data. AICC doesn't have the cross-domain issues as SCORM does. And so what I mean by that is if you're serving your content from, let's say, xyz.com, and your LMS is on lms.com, then that communication in SCORM is going to go through the browser across two domains, the two different domains I mentioned. And for the most part, the browser has restrictions on that so that one domain can't send viruses into your system. So by using AICC, you get around that because you're not using the client. You're posting information to another server. So you don't have the cross-domain issues as you would in SCORM. Now, that being said, we do have a product called SCORM for Cross-Domain, which fixes that issue so that the reason for using AICC, because it has the ability to go cross-domain, is not necessarily a reason anymore. Because, like I said, we have SCORM for cross-domain, which allows the SCORM content to using iframes and some domain trickery to be able to work as though, same way AICC would work across domains. The other reason is AICC is really a different standard in the way that it's put together. You're basically you're posting strings of information that basically look like INF files, if you know what those are. And in SCORM, you're actually, and then that INF file, in AICC, that INF file is parsed, all the data is pulled out, and then there's a result sent back to the posting server. In SCORM, everything runs client side, which brings up another issue of security. AICC is a little more secure because it's kind of hard to hack. I'm not going to get into hacking right now, but the HTTP post is harder to get to for a layman than the code for SCORM. The reason being is the SCORM code is on your computer. You can look in your cache in your browser and see the entire SCORM API and code and API adapter and everything that the LMS sent down to be able to connect. So for testing and things like that, a lot of people use server-side solution rather than a client-side solution, and so that's the AICC versus SCORM in a nutshell.
So So I have another question out there from Mary, a follow-on from before about LMS. She points out that responsiveness sometimes from vendors is difficult, and so wondering if you have a listing or some recommendations of products and a roadmap for additional LMS type situations. Products and a roadmap is what she's asking for.
Okay. I'm sorry, but I don't exactly understand the question.
Well,
Are you talking about like what kind of LMSs to buy, what kind of LMSs to use? Is that kind of recommendation?
As far as Tin Can, the earlier question was, is there any sort of document that says which to use when? And so the follow-on question is, are there LMS that you know of or products out there that do a better job of making that possible with Tin Can and so forth being new?
Oh, okay. Well, as for making possible the use of Tin Can, there's on tincanapi.com. If you scroll all the way to the bottom of the page, you'll see kind of a scrolling marquee, and those are all of the LMS vendors and content vendors and tool vendors that have currently a product out for sale that implements Tin Can. So you can always go that route and take a look at that list, and then from there parse out what you're interested in. Also, there's a couple of websites that allow you to compare different learning management systems on different features, and one of them is edutools. I believe it's .info. You may have to Google it. I'm off the top of my head right now, but they have basically a part of their website where it lists, I don't know, 100 different LMSs, and you can check off which ones you want to compare with which ones, and then it makes a table of side-by-side comparisons, like this LMS supports SCORM, this LMS supports AICC, this LMS supports
That's pretty useful.
Tin Can. This one has SQL Server as its backend. This one has ASP. This one uses PHP. So then you can kind of look and see, okay, well, and there's pricing too as well. Like this one, starting price is nothing. It's open source. Or starting price is this, and then price to maintain over time is estimated to be this. So you can get kind of an idea of at least where to start. So a lot of our clients, we'll send them there first if they have no idea at all where to start. We'll say, take a look at edutools.info, which I believe it's edutools.something. I'm pretty sure it's edutools.info.
Yeah, I tried it. It works. And Mary clarified a little bit more that she's interested in knowing your particular business, meaning JCA products, and support of different LMS. So you said there's a scrolling marquee on your site?
Oh, no, that's on tincanapi.com.
That's Tin Can, okay.
Yeah, so that's everybody that so far has supported Tin Can. As for our own products and services, we can support any standard and any pretty much any learning management system. In fact, we have a list of the learning management systems that we support. I'll have to look and see exactly where it is on our website, and then I can tell you real quick.
You have Silverchair Learning. Do you support them?
Who?
Silverchair Learning?
Yes, definitely. We've worked with GeoLearning quite a bit. I believe their offices are here in Florida, if I'm not mistaken.
I get frustrated, but I think it's the package we own, not the...
It's, let me see here. We've got under resources. Yeah, so if you go to the JCASolutions.com website and then click on development and then click on resources, we have list of LMSs. And then we have a list of SCORM tools and lists of standards and specification frameworks. And so if you click on the list of LMSs, right now there is 150 entries, and those are all the LMSs we've done business with.
That should help.
You sound like rank newbies. Only 150?
Well, we're doing our best.
So that's actually why you do need the psychiatric treatment afterwards, because that could drive you crazy sometimes.
Right? Yeah. I take it myself.
Now, one thing, I'll do a plug for Brian, I guess ourselves indirectly, but if you're looking to buy an LMS or upgrade an LMS or change an LMS, don't do it by yourself. For the most part, you're going to get ripped off by some vendor who doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. Call somebody like Brian up, make sure that they can give you some good advice, because there's a lot of let's just call it crap out there, and you don't want to buy crap, and you don't want to spend a fortune on crap. Buy good stuff, and talk to vendors who've been through it, because that's going to save you a lot of time and money in the long run. Just a bit of advice. You've got Brian's website here. Definitely take advantage of the resource.
Yes, definitely. I mean, and like I said before, we're pure consultants. Our rate is very fair for the industry, and we're really looking to make sure that people are getting trained properly. I mean, that's like I said, my background's in psychology, and my wife's a teacher, and so we're really into making sure that people are getting taught properly. So the less you spend on the LMS, the better value you get. Then the more you can spend on instructional systems and really get good content out there.
It's actually true. We've sold some LMSs. Well, actually, we've indirectly, not sold, but recommended LMSs, and they weren't that expensive, and they did as good a job as any of the big giants, if you will. In fact, probably better. And I've been in many shops where the big giants are in, and there's nothing but problems. And
spend your money on good design.
Yeah, and then you're always
spend an extra $50 on another designer.
Yeah, and you're always dealing with the LMS versus the authoring tool, which is another whole issue. So when you look at your authoring tools, don't believe everything you read. Make sure that it actually works. There's a lot of stuff that they claim works, but then when you actually try to implement it, then you'll get that worked on that LMS, but didn't work on this one.
We often recommend the Articulate line of products.
Yeah.
For two reasons. One, I love the interface. I mean, and what they've done with Storyline is really pretty cool.
Yeah.
And they've got a great back-end API with SCORM. I know that they're using the driver from Mike Rusticy's software stack, and so that's just really a great product. I mean, I think that's should be top of the line if it's not.
Yep. It works pretty well. We use that and haven't really had too many issues with it. Interesting, when we talk about cross-domain, and cross-domain, for those who aren't familiar, is when you leave the firewall you're in to go to a different server somewhere else, or maybe even bounce through a couple of different offices. And that can get tricky sometimes, and every so often AICC works better, and every so often SCORM works better. It's just real interesting depending on the implementation of the particular authoring tool and the particular vendor. Like on Plateau, we're starting to do, like with Storyline and Plateau, we're doing, I think, SCORM 2004 for the cross-domain, which works better than the AICC on Plateau. Interesting kind of weird mix. And that was just really trial and error. We said, okay, it's not working too well on this one. Let's try the other one. Hey, it worked. Okay, life is good.
Right. A lot of the LMSs have implemented a SCORM for cross-domain type solution that deploys with the content, especially systems like Cogno and Open Sesame, where you can upload your content and they basically just serve an instance of your content, but your content is never really on anybody else's server, so you can keep track of licensing and that sort of thing. You can sell them onesie twosies type of stuff.
Yeah, Open Sesame's done a nice job on that.
Yeah. I actually talked to the developer about how they built their cross-domain solution, and I was impressed because it was similar to ours.
Yeah, they're good folks.
Yeah, definitely, and they're very willing to talk to you and work with you and help you get your content up. I've had a lot of people that have come to us with very big issues with their content, and for the most part, we just say, well, these are the things that you may want to look into, and then Open Sesame takes from there, and their guys will get your stuff taken care of. So
that sounds good.
Plug for them, but they're pretty good.
Well, we are running at the end of the show at this point. This was
All right.
this was a good show. You know, it's hard to make SCORM fun for people. I thought we had a good fun show. I enjoyed it. Now, Dawn, see, it wasn't that bad, was it?
Don't reveal my secrets.
She was drooling at the beginning. SCORM? No, that's good. And if anybody needs to get a hold of you, Brian, how do they get a hold of you?
I think the best way would just be support at jcasolutions.com.
Okay.
And then either myself, George, Mike, or one of the other guys will pick up and take care of that. Also, call direct is a very good way to get a hold of us, since we just get inundated with emails every day.
Okay.
Our 1-800 number is 1-800-305-8159, and that'll put you right into to me. So
That sounds great. And from personal experience, we, like I said, we own one of the products, and I think we looked at one of the other products, and you helped us when we were looking at it. Very good support, and you guys are good. You guys do a great job. So
Thank you.
we appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate the kudos, and we try our best.
Yeah, you're the first guest that my wife actually got on the show. Because I actually didn't know who you were, and she goes, "You got to talk to Brian." All right,
Yeah.
and I'm glad we did, because and she's never been involved in the show at all. She works with us, but not on the show side, and she was really adamant about getting you on. I said, "Oh, sure, not an issue."
One thing I wanted to say before we go is we're also on LinkedIn, and we have a company profile on LinkedIn. So if you want to follow us, that's the best way to do it. Just follow JCA Solutions on LinkedIn. You can also join one of our groups, which is Conform to Tin Can or Conform to SCORM. And we have about 500, 600 people in the Conform to SCORM group, and about 60 or 70 people in the other group. So
That's great.
It's moving along well, and you get a lot of good information from those folks, and it doesn't cost anything. So
No, that's good. I think you're also on Twitter at Conform 2 SCORM.
right, exactly.
Yep, I said you're new on Twitter. I noticed you just kind of got on recently.
Well, we're on and off. We use LinkedIn for most of our data exchange, information exchange.
That's great. Well, that sounds great. Well, Brian, it's been a pleasure having you on, and
Thank you.
we'll probably be calling you soon for some other things that we're looking at. And Dawn, as always, a pleasure. And for all you guys in the chat room, thanks so much for being there. If you're watching the recording, please subscribe and keep watching. We appreciate your watching. Anyway, have a good one, everybody, and we will see you next week on eLearnChat.
Thanks, everyone.